Spring is in the air, which means now is the time to save during spring outdoor power deals at the Home Depot. Make cleanup easier when you go cordless with the Milwaukee M18 string trimmer, designed to deliver more runtime, more speed, and maximum performance. Then grab a select Milwaukee fuel attachment, like the pole saw, edger, or brush cutter, included at no extra cost when you buy the Milwaukee M18 string trimmer. Shop 7 days of spring outdoor power deals at the Home Depot, now through April 29th.
Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
I think when you can talk and make the game as simple as you possibly can to these guys, you're going to be able to spend more time on the things that matter instead of memorizing a bunch of fancy terms.
Welcome to another episode of the Mushroom Society podcast on the Coach and Coordinator Network. Today, we're bringing you a Cool Clinic presentation from Joe Philbin, a longtime NFL offensive line coach, on 5-man empty protection. Coach Philbin walks through how to protect the quarterback, keep the A and B gaps clean, tie the line's sets to the launch point, and build confidence in one-on-one pass protection. Before we get started, make plans to join us at the Cool Clinic May 14th through 16th. If you coach the offensive line, this is the room you want to be in. Get your ticket today at thecoolclinic.com, and we'll see you at the Cool Clinic. Check the description for a link. Now here's the episode with Coach Joe Philbin.
We have another tremendous speaker. Yesterday, if I could give you guys that are listening to some tips about the clinic, you've got these guys in a question and answer period. Use them. You've got them right at your fingertips, right? Those guys that presented yesterday, John and Andy Heck and Kevin Carberry and Marty, you got those guys right there. Use them. If you got a question, get it answered. They love to do that. Now, our next speaker, Joe Philbin, what a wonderful career. What a great football coach and a wonderful teacher. I brought guys here that are teachers. Don't worry about the schemes and everything else. These guys can teach. They get it from the blackboard and they get it to the grass, right? And this guy is a very passionate, wonderful teacher of the game. He's been at Tulane. He went to WPI. He went to the Merchant Marine Academy. He's at Allegheny. Quick story about Allegheny. He had to borrow a car from the head coach at Allegheny College and drive to the Cool Clinic in Cincinnati back in 1991 because he's afraid his car wasn't going to make it. All right. So he found a way to get it done. There's a passion people have for the game. He was at Ohio University, Northeastern. He was at Harvard, Iowa. Then he got to the Packers. And from the Packers, he went to become the head football coach. He was at the Packers for a number of years. He was a quality control tight end coach, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator. And then he got the head job at the Dolphins and at the Indianapolis Colts. Right back to Green Bay as the offensive coordinator. And now he's down coaching the offensive line, who, by the way, was the number one offensive line in the National Football League last year. This guy coached the number one offensive line in the National Football League last year. Joe Philbin is going to talk about empty protections. Listen, write down questions, and ask the questions at the end of the clinic. All right, Joe, you got it, pal.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, guys. And again, Bob, thank you very much for this opportunity to present. And, Bob kind of highlighted that story. So obviously I have a lot of fond memories of the offensive line clinic back in Cincinnati. And that first time in 1991 going there. And the one thing I remember distinctly about that clinic was how welcoming all the guys made you feel. It didn't matter what level of football you were coaching. Again, I was in awe just walking into that clinic, Howard Mudd, Coach McNally, Bob, all those guys, Larry Bechtel, who I had the chance to work with later on. But so many guys that were so generous with their time, with their knowledge, and passing along to young coaches like myself at that point in time. Certainly not a young coach anymore. But again, the goal today, guys, is to talk about five-man drop back pass protection. As Bob mentioned, I think one of the things that's so important in coaching is that you develop and adhere to things that you believe in strongly. And I'm certainly one that believes that there's more than one way to do things, but I feel strongly about the things that I'm going to talk about here. I don't think you're going to love every single thing that I talk about. And that's okay. But I do think that hopefully there'll be a couple of things, whether it's a schematic thing, whether it's a fundamental thing, whether it's a coaching thing, whether it's a practice thought. Hopefully there'll be something that you can take out of this presentation and apply. Obviously the whole thing is it's great to have knowledge in football. The other thing is what's the application of all that knowledge, number one, and number two, does it show up on the film? That's really the greatest barometer of all of ours as coaches is do our players consistently execute to the best of their ability the things that we're teaching them and asking them to do, and are we putting them in a good position to be successful? So with all that said, the format, what I wanted to do was, I talked to Bob a couple months back, and I felt like when I watched the college film today with all the draft evaluations that we do, and sometimes on Friday nights they have some games right here where I go to work every day, and there's a lot of spread formations. There's a lot of five-man drop back pass protection. So I felt like this might be something worth talking about. Both, again, there's a little bit of X's and O's to it, but there's obviously not a lot of variety in a five-man drop back pass protection. You're not involving a tight end. You're not involving a running back. You have a couple of maybe adjustments that the quarterback can make, but not a lot. So it's more centered on the offensive line. So what I thought we'd do would be, I want to talk a little bit about some general beliefs that I have about pass protection, just overall, and in the hopes that, again, we can kind of get a common ground before we get into the film. I think I'm looking at my thing. I got about 90 clips. I know we're not going to get through all of them. But we'll it should give us some discussion points as we go. So let's get right going with this. And this is general. This is just foundational beliefs. Obviously, it applies to the five-man drop back pass protection concepts that we're going to introduce here in a few minutes. If you said, "Hey Joe, what's some of the cardinal rules that we talk about in our room and as a offensive staff as it relates to dropping back and throwing the football behind the center?" I would tell you that, and it certainly applies in five-man protection, that objective number one is to keep a clean A and B gap so the quarterback can set his feet. So we don't want to turn anybody loose. We use the term, we don't want to have any free runners in the A or B gaps. All right. We want to protect the backside of the quarterback. All right. And so if there are unaccounted for defenders, as we all know in today's game, I don't care what level you're at, the defense has the capability of, quote, bringing one more guy than you have in the scheme. So we know that's a possibility. So in our system, we're going to do everything we possibly can to protect the backside of the quarterback. And if we do have an extra defender, have him come in the face of the quarterback. So I think it's very important when you sit down as a staff that you guys have some general beliefs about how you protect the quarterback. We're an inside out starting point. So, another cardinal rule would be to our guys, hey, it sounds simple, man. You're going to be amazed at, hopefully, at the simplicity of this scheme, I hope, and some of the fundamentals. Try to, over a number of years, really focus major in the major, and we want to be known as an inside out pass protection team. If you're in the A or B gaps, you want to have your nose on the inside eye of the defender. If you're out on the edges and you got a wide rusher, you want to make sure your inside hip, your crotch is on the defender's inside hip. So we want to be known as an inside out pass protection team. I think this is really important, and obviously it applies in the five-man protections, but think about your individual period, how much time you have, and the real foundation of pass protection is spending time mastering, the fundamentals of the one-on-one pass block where you're isolated on a specific defender and you don't have help. All right. And there's obviously a time and a place where you're going to have 3-on-2s, and it's going to be up here in another bullet point. It might be the next bullet point. I'm probably jumping ahead. But, when you think about pressure in the National Football League, you think about pressure at any level, we try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. So we talk to our guys, hey, if they're playing a Okie front, 2 uncovered guards, a center covered, 2 tackles covered, and 2 outside linebackers coming off the edge, in a textbook, it might be, oh, that's Okie saw. When we're sitting in the room, we're saying, hey, that's 5 straight ahead. 5 guys going straight to the quarterback. And I think when you can talk, and make the game as simple as you possibly can to these guys, you're going to be able to spend more time on the things that matter instead of memorizing a bunch of fancy terms, And there's, again, obviously, guys, we want to have help. We want to build in help. We know there's quality rushers. There's mismatches at every single level of football, not just in the NFL. Our O-linemen typically aren't quite as athletic as those other guys. We all know that. So we certainly want to have help built into the scheme when it applies. I think this is important, and this shows up on our film, and it shouldn't show up. Man, it sounds like a real elementary point, but we're all part of the staff, and you guys got to, you got to sit down and make sure that the sets of the O line, the launch point of the quarterback, the depth route concepts on the perimeter, they have to marry. If you're going to have a good outside zone play, guys, right? You got to have the aiming point of the running back, the aiming point of the O-line, the shoulder pad, the pass of the back, and the marriage with the O-line, right? You can't have it, differences there. Just like the passing game's no different. We can't be setting for a 3-step drop and the quarterback's 7.5 yards deep, patting the ball 5 different. And it happens, trust me. So making sure, I know these are simple elementary points. The other point about bullet point number 4, and I think it's important to say, we all know, I think, at nut cutting time, right, when the game is on the line, there's going to be a point where that offensive player that you're coaching has to have faith and confidence in his ability to block the defender he's assigned to in a one-on-one manner, because the defense is going to most likely at some point in time pressure and force those one-on-one. So if you're always, building help and saying, oh, we're going to 2-on-1 that guy, we're going to 3-on-2 this side, we're going to 4-on-3 there, don't worry about it. I don't know how you build confidence. It's that fine line, but I know from experience, you got to have, those guys have to have confidence in their ability to block one-on. All right. Let's just talk about some coaching points, and these are somewhat random. And again, guys, you don't have to. We can, at the end of this, I can certainly give you my number. You don't have to take all this stuff down. Not that it all applies, but these are things again from that I believe in strongly. Really, when you think of the job description in pass protection, I don't care what pass protection you are in. Man, slide, sort, strain, double read, back double. It doesn't matter. The O-line's job is to provide time for the quarterback to make a good decision and throw the ball accurately, period. And they don't have eyes in the back of their head, right? So we're going to coach up the launch point. They're going to know where the quarterback in the design of the pass play is supposed to be. But they're not the ones, but their job is to give the quarterback the time, the space that he needs to make a good decision and throw the ball accurately. If we tell them in the run game, the Dallas guy in our room, your job is to create space for the running back, period. I don't care if we're wide reaching, tight reaching, down block, pulling. Those are the job descriptions. So this is starred. This is, again, it's big picture, but, they got to understand what they're really supposed to do. I sucked in math. I don't understand geometry very well, but I do understand that the fastest way to get from point A to point B is to go on a straight line. And I'm talking about the defense, right? So when we talk pass protection, on a board, I just draw 5 guys across and a bunch of X's and a launch point, and I show every guy, what's the quickest way to get from A to the launch point? It's a straight line. So we use the term here, and I don't think it's a negative term. And I believe in this, and I mean this 100%. That there's no shame in getting run over slowly, right? What am I really talking about? I'm really talking about the job of an O lineman is to take away, first and foremost, that direct rush lane from point A to point B. Think of it as, it's a race, right? And really, the receivers, think of the receivers, they're not really running a race against the corner or the safety or whoever. They're running a race against the defensive end or the defensive tackle who's trying like hell to get to the quarterback. I don't know if that resonates with you guys or makes any sense, but we want our guys, we want them to get on the line and get in front first. And we literally tell them, if you never punched a guy, if you didn't have any hands, if you had to play the game with your hands tied behind your back, if you got on the line and you made him at least alter his course or he ran you over slowly, we're going to have a chance to get the ball out, right? If you don't ever get in front, man, that's in my experience when bad things happen. So maybe you like the term, maybe you don't, maybe you think it's negative. But man, we want to, at the very least, we want to get run over slowly. I don't know if this analogy fits for you guys or if it makes any sense. It works. It makes a lot of sense to me. Think about it this way: one-on-one pass protection is really man-to-man defense in basketball. And you think of the launch point of the quarterback, think of that as the hoop, the bucket in basketball, right? So when you're playing man-to-man defense in basketball, and the further you keep your man away from the hoop, right, the less likely he is to score, the less offensive rebounds he's probably going to grab. And that's good stuff for your team. The further you keep them away from the launch point in football from the quarterback, right, the better decisions the quarterback's going to make. The more accurately you would have to think he's going to throw the football because he's going to have the space to follow through. The less tipped passes you're going to have, probably a higher completion percentage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we, kind of create that image. It's man-to-man defense in basketball. Keep them as far away as you possibly can. That launch point's the hoop. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. We use it here quite a bit. The longer I've been doing it, the more I believe in the footwork. Well, Joe, remember, we're an inside-out pass pro team, right? We want to keep our nose on his inside eye when we're in the A and B gaps. We want to keep our midline, right, our crotch on his inside hip when we're out there against these wide edge guys, right? We want to keep that inside-out mentality. I feel like the more and more the run game and the pass game are kind of tied together. What do I mean by that? I mean, I don't think you have to go very far. We're going to get to the tape real soon. And I think one of the things that makes Zach Martin so good at what he does, first of all, he's had great coaching way before I ever showed up. Guys like Harry and Coach Callahan and Coach Pollock and Paul and Mark Colombo, some great coaching, but he doesn't go anywhere. When you're going to watch the film, he doesn't go very far, guys. So I think that shorter first step and a shorter and faster and a bigger second. What do I mean by that? Well, just like think of the run game for a second, right? In the run game, we all give our guys an aiming point to block. Like, for example, if Zach Martin's running an inside zone play as a right guard against a three technique, hey, Zach, get your eyes on his play side number, right? We're in a zone, a play side gap mentality, right? So he takes that first step to get his eyes there. And then that second step is always the adjust step in the run game, right? And it has to adjust based on where the aiming point goes. And no different in pass pro. So in pass protection, I think it's so important that first step gets down quickly, that it's, obviously in relation to the alignment of the defender and the launch point. Obviously, common sense footwork applies there, but I think there's a merit in a shorter, faster approach to these our tackles. Remember and I used to do it, the big old motorcycle kick and get out of there, and boy, those guys are going to run around you. We're working as best we can at getting those feet in the ground quickly. I think this is a real important point in pass pro. It seems like, more and more and more, the defense is, especially in must-pass situations, third down, et cetera, right? They're lining up the defensive tackles, for God's sake, in a five technique, and that's the guy that the guard has. So we use the term around here, guys, it's an illusion, right? What does the defense really want you to do? And we use the term, they want you to kick to left field, right? If you're a left guard, they want you to kick way the hell out there. Somebody's got to kind of come to you. So, we're always freezing the tape when we watch it and, trying to give them the image again that green grass is not their friend. And don't do what they exactly want you to do. They get these guys, three big guys to one side, and we'll see some of that film here coming up in a little bit. They want you to kick way out. Well, the guards guy is outside the defensive end. Man, kick way the hell out there. It's an illusion. Don't do it. All right.
We'll get back to Coach Philbin in a moment. This episode is brought to you by the Mushroom Society, the year-round home for cool clinic coaches. Inside the Mushroom Society, you get more than clinic replays. You get a community built around offensive line play, ongoing conversations with coaches, and tools designed to help you keep learning long after the clinic ends. Join us at mushroom-society.com. The link is in the description. Now let's get back to Coach Philbin.
All right. Guys, you can't have independent contractors and pick up twists and blitz and games. Again, I've seen, this year, and I think college football is getting as much, if not more, movement than we see in the NFL. And I'm sure it's, in high school, nothing, football is football, guys, right? A launch point's a launch point. A man one-on-one protection is one-on-one protection. I don't care what level you're at. So just like the launch point and the QB sets, the QB depth, the launch point, the sets, and the route depths have to marry. So does it with the O-line, right? We can't have independent contractors in the O-line. If you're going to say, hey, big picture wise, what are we? We're, there's that balance, I think, man, in pass pro, right? Where you have these very talented athletes across the line of scrimmage. They're crowding the ball. They want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. They have really good quickness and really good strength, right? So if you keep backing up, what are you doing? You're giving them more momentum to run you over, correct? But if you just set flat every single time, what are you doing there? You're really becoming, in our humble opinion, a little more susceptible to the different games and twists and blitzes that are really, really going to challenge you. I do believe there's a time and a place to get on them, as we like to say, to jump them, to get on them quick. Obviously, 3-step, I think, provides more opportunity to do that. But again, that has to be coordinated with the sets across the front. All right. I think this is an important point too, guys. I just said we don't want to create, and think about this in 5-man protection, right? So the O-line, if you're going to line up and empty, right, and have nobody in the backfield, the defense knows that if we bring 6, we have a chance to overload the protection unit. All right. So the problem with, if you want to get, think of, again, everything in life is a balance, right? So if you cut your splits down so much, right, if the guard is worried about TT games all day, and I don't want to get too far from the center, right? What's he really doing to the tackle? He's screwing the tackle because that distance that the defensive end has to travel just got a hell of a lot shorter. I don't know if that especially 5-man protection. I think you got to have 2-foot splits. I really believe that. I don't think you can, I just don't think it's as sound if you start cutting down. The more longer I've been coaching, I think there's some value watching the sideline film, watching your guys protect the quarterback from the sideline view. And I'll tell you why. I mean, we use the terms, keep your shoulders behind your knees and get your hands up. Like, we're going to get into the 3 simple fundamentals that we teach. But with that said, we believe in, that you're, as a pass protector, you want to protect your numbers, right? And to do that, you got to keep your hands up, all right? And we don't want you to have a rigid upper body necessarily, but we want you to keep your shoulders behind your knees. So when you watch the sideline view, I think you're going to have again, you're not going to study it for a half hour, but you can look and you can coach up. Hey guys, what's your, hey, Zach, you're leaning forward here. Do you see it? Tyron, you don't have your hands up. Or hopefully you're reaffirming the fundamentals that you're looking for. So I think just that athletic position where your shoulders are behind your knees and your hands are up, right? I think there's some, I've used this analogy before. Obviously, we talked about man to man defense in basketball. Think about, a shortstop in baseball who has, a lot of green grass to defend, right? He has to have a good athletic position, good knee bend. Now, of course, he leans over a little bit. He's not, I'm not talking about the upper body or somebody a guy in tennis, right? He's about to receive the serve. Ball's coming 140 miles an hour. You got to be able to move, right? So you got to be, we probably would favor more of the athletic type of O lineman than a big bruiser. So that's kind of how we kind of think alignment. We try to keep it simple in terms of, the thought process of, what are we really looking for after the snap? So imagine that, Zach Martin's the right guard. He's got a 3 technique. That means the defender's aligned to his right and the defender rushes. So when we say, we don't have to, we kind of got him where we want him. We don't have to kick way out to him. I don't care how wide he is, right? Because we know where the quarterback is and we know the A to B that he has to travel to get there. But if the defender lines to your right and he rushes right, we want to assess as the down unfolds, what's your right hand and right knee look like as the down unfolds? And if they're not tied together, you're going to have some issues. And we'll talk about that. And it's kind of, the eyes, the hands, and the feet all have to be tied together. All right. So that's kind of some real, I think important. And these are all going to come up when we watch the tape. And a lot of these are really the things that we coach, that we believe in, that I think are really, really important. Pass pro. Well, we believe that, we think that's like a shield for an O lineman to kind of protect his upper body. All right. And we're ultimately looking for some separation from the defender. And we're not looking at a elongated knockout punch when we engage the defender. But so anyway, the why of what you're doing, I think, is important. The more you can explain that to the players, again, I think you're going to get more buy-in. I think they're going to execute it better, et cetera, et cetera. And it's so important, guys, that it's, it can't be, I can't do it because somebody else will. You have to, they're going to feel whether you really buy into it and you believe it or not, So why do you do this? Why do I think it's good to have some 5-man pass pro? I think it's good to stress the defense out, right? You're going to get 5 guys into the pass concept right away. I think this is big. Point 2, I think, is really big. At every level of football, there's a bunch of 6-man protection. Let's call it what it is, right? On 3rd down in the NFL, everybody has 6-man protections. Everybody does it a little different, but there's all 6-man. Same in college. I mean, I've watched a boatload of, every one of us evaluates, 50 guys in college film, and everybody does it in college. I did it in college when I was coaching at Allegheny. We had a 6-man protection. But point is, whether you line up in an empty or set, or you have a back in the backfield and run a 5-man scheme, I think it's good because it forces the defense to defend both your empty and your what looks like your 6-man protection. I think there's some validity to the fact that empty formation, having sat in some defensive meetings when I was a head coach, right? We may have gone into a game in Miami with 3 checks to empty. Hey, if we're going to do that, we're going to have a coverage call, we're going to have a zone pressure, and we're going to have a 0 check, right? So sometimes I think you can shrink the playbook of the defense. I think this is a really good answer for it as well. I think this is an excellent reason to do it. When I got into the NFL in 2003, I would have told you that, man, it seemed like it was a overload, zone pressure, kind of was the common blitz. I know I was kind of the blitz guy when I first got into the league, and that's, Coach Johnson of the Eagles. We played them a couple times every year, and, the zone blitzes in the NFC North, blah, blah, blah. If you ask me today, I would tell you, man, you better be ready to stop blitz the back, right? And we know there's guys sitting in a dark room trying to figure out how many times the center goes to the same side of the back, how many times he goes away. So what are the defenses trying to do? They're trying to isolate guys. et cetera, create one-on-one. So I think when you have this, it's a really good answer for teams that blitz the back. I think it's good against some of these bear defenses, cub defenses, diamond or whatever you call it when they cover the core, double mug fronts, whatever you call that. Minnesota, Coach Zimmer in Cincinnati and Minnesota made. Everybody does it. Everybody has it. I think there's some good things you can do there to maybe force some adjustments. And again, Bob and I were talking about this before. He made the comment in a lot of places that he's been. By the time you go to your cutoffs in February and March, you're saying, "Holy cow, we ran, gone protection 192 times. We only got sacked twice, or whatever the numbers are. The numbers, the numbers are important. The film's the most important, but in theory, you should be getting the ball out pretty quickly, right? Let's talk about the fundamentals that we teach here. And they're in the order that we practice them. They're in the order that we emphasize them, and they're in the order the devoted time that we give to them in a limited practice setting. So we talked about A to B a lot. We talk about it every single day, but the set, I think, is absolutely the O-lineman's number one asset in pass protection. Think about it, what do O-linemen do in the off season to get strength, right? They do all this ground-based training to strengthen their lower body, their core, their hands, so that all this power gets transferred to the punch, which is going to be next. But if I've never seen, if you're not in front and your hand and knee aren't together and your foot and your knee and your hip aren't in good alignment, it doesn't really matter how good your punch is. So if you ask me, I would tell you, I don't know, guys, I'm throwing out a number. I'm not saying this is, gospel truth, but I would say, I think 70% of it might be the set. And I mean that 100%. I mean, that's how strongly I believe in that. You have to get in front of the guy. You have to make him alter his path to the quarterback, and then you incorporate the fundamentals of the punch to do that. What's the key to a punch, right? So remember, we talked about the image that we want to see from the sideline angle. We want to see our shoulders back, right? And our hands up. That's the first thing we want to see. Shoulders back, hands up, right? So if our shoulders are back, our head should be back. We want that. We don't want the forward lean where the weight's getting up on the toes. We don't want to be awkward and rigid, falling backwards where the weight's going on our heels. We want to be balanced, right? I've shown the guys, and again, guys, I don't know that this is 100% accurate how boxers teach it, but the reason too, we teach a jab right here, short, compact, 6-inch punch, thumbs at 11-1, making contact with the base of the palms. And we'll kind of show them pictures. I'll pull up a YouTube and young guys, especially, and show them pictures of Muhammad Ali's jab, right? Where, what did they used to call, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, where he's moving around the ring so fluid, right? Like an athlete, just kind of dancing around, bouncing around. And then all of a sudden, when somebody gets kind of close to him, right, he'll kind of snap that jab in there. And man, you'll see that guy's head pop back a little bit. And so that's the image that we're looking to create with that jab. We're not looking for a knockout punch. We're not looking for a bench press. We don't want him to hitch his hands and drop his hands down to his waist and then really uncork on him and unload on him. We want him to just get him away. We want separation. We want to get off. We want the defender to get off. We're really looking to disrupt the rush pattern of the defender that we're assigned to. I don't know that we're going to stop him dead in his tracks. Look, you guys know, some of you watch Tyron Smith. I mean, the guy's got, incredible strength, incredible. And there's some pictures where he just stones guys, right? But that's not the norm in football. All right. You have to give a little ground at times, that natural absorption, so to speak, where that punch, we call it kind of punch and recover, where you might have to reestablish your base a little bit. So, but the image is short, compact, timing, rhythm, float and sting. All right. And the last is the mirror. So these are the three things that we talk about. These are the three things that we coach on every snap. What's your set like? What kind of punch? How do you utilize your hands? And what's your body position relative to the defender, right? And the location of the quarterback. And again, we're always talking about where's your hand and knee in relation to the defender. So those are the three critical elements that we talk about in pass pro, and the fundamental things that we drill, every single day. Uh, Aside from, and we obviously want to tie it in because of the limited time that we have. We want to tie it in conceptually to our teaching of, um, 5-man protection, six-man protection, et cetera, et cetera. But we do most of it in a one-on-one format. Let's get real specific here. We only have a couple more slides, and we're going to get right to the tape. 5-man protection principles here. So, big picture wise, guys, we're now in what I would call an O-line double read protection. And it's really O-line double read on both sides. All right. We call it, it's a, strain. Sometimes we have, slide protections where we slide to a particular defender, which are not O-line double read, right? Which kind of we're married to a certain number of defenders. Here in this double read, we're not married. It's not 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. It's 2 for 3, 3 for 4, 4 for 5, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Again, we're talking about the launch point. I don't think you can overemphasize this enough. And we have 3-step version and 5-step version. So the max depth for us would be 8 yards directly behind the center. All right. And I think this is something that I undercoach. I think it's an undercoach thing, and making sure they understand. Just like we were watching some stuff today. We're in this phase 2. We're stepping, going. We don't have helmets, and we're, going through things just in our own O-line period, and having guys finish the drill or the play. We're maybe running ETs in a guard, finishing on a looper with his nose on his inside eye, understanding where the launch point is, and finishing reps in practice in a quality fashion. This is how we get the scheme started, right? Now we have the reason I put colors. I'll show you a picture of some of our diagrams, right? We have a color system in our playbook, and it doesn't matter what the colors are. You could have your own. Maybe you have them all black or all a certain color, and then maybe you don't care. It's all up to you. But here, what we do is we put our D linemen in green, our linebackers are in red always, and our DBs are in blue. So a center's rule, it would be, you declare the first linebacker type away from the directional call. And since we put it both in red and blue, remember, in 5-man protection, guys, for us, this is Dallas Cowboys, you don't care about matchups per se. Everybody counts in this, and I'm going to get into the count system here in a minute. For example, the priority is protecting the A and B gaps, and any free defender is coming in the C gap or further outside. And we believe that with the pass concept coordinated, with the declaration coordinated, with the communication with the perimeter, quarterback, O-line, that in theory, on paper, we're going to get the ball out if we protect the A and B gaps. And we'll show you some examples. Well, I'm going to show you examples where we didn't as well. This is not just, oh, yeah, look how great we do this. We got a lot of bad examples. We're going to look at some of them. We number this, guys, just like we would number a weak side inside zone play. Imagine we all had a 6-man run where we had an open side tackle, a guard, a center, and we were playing a standard nickel defense, right? In our world, in Dallas, our zone plays, the center has 0, the guard has 1, the tackle has 2. The backside guard has 1 removed, the backside tackle has 2 removed, the tight end has 3 removed. I mean, that's how simple our rules are. So we teach 5-man drop back pass protection the exact same way. All they need to know, I kid around with our guys, if you can count to 3, you can play here. All right. And again, we ran 200 snaps of this a year, both years I've been here. So we do this an awful lot. All right. So what they do have to know is, where's the center going, which direction, which way did he point, and we go from there. And he gives and we're an inside out count team. I might have that on a future point here, but we count from the inside out. And we give an R or L call to denote where 0 is. All right. We're inside out, and we only have 1 0. Okay. We're almost done with these PowerPoints. So let's just go to this diagram, see if this makes any sense. And hopefully it does. So imagine we're in a 3-by-1 formation. I think everybody can see that. We're the quarterback's given, he's calling the direction left, which means we want to put a yellow, for us, it's a yellow dot. Where's the yellow dot? We say, again, you don't have to, you can use whatever you want, but here we're going to use the yellow dot, right? And this is a concept where showing that there's a yellow dot, there's where that double read takes place. And you can see opposite, and we're going to get into the numbering system here in a second, how we number the defense. But this is conceptually on the right side. We're 2 for 3 for those guys. And we'll number the defense here in a minute on the left side, right? Because obviously that tackles in what we call a big duel. That arrow with the H means he's out of there. He's got a free release. He's not part of the protection responsibility. So if the guard bubble is to the side of the yellow dot, you see that digit. Hey, the center would say, hey, right 2, right 2, right 2. You two guys, that's where we're starting your side. So that means 0 is the guy on me. And so we'll get into this count system quickly here. Center's uncovered, right? Everybody in America would see it the same way, whether you call it an even defense, whether I've called it a 40, 45 defense. Again, doesn't matter. Center's uncovered. That's a 3 for us all day long. He's just going to tell everybody what direction he's going. Center quarterback's thinking, remember, go back to our general foundation principle. We want to, at best we can, shut down the backside of the quarterback. All right. And then we'd have a 4 call. If the yellow dot is opposite the guard bubble, all 4 is saying is, hey, you know what? I need you, left guard. Come on over here with me. We're sliding to the right to that Sam backer, to that yellow dot. All right. Now let's just talk about the numbers quickly. We're just about to get to the film. Here we're in a directional call of right. So the center's going left, protecting the backside of the quarterback. Again, we have 1-0, as you can see. We have 1-0. We got the end is 1, the will's 2, the 3 technique is 1, and here's 2 and 3 to the right. All right. Again, there it is, getting picked up. Again, you're talking about who the final 0 is, who the final number 1 is, who the final number 2 is. All right. This time we're going left. All right. Directional call is left. So again, he wants to shut down the right side to the best of his ability, right? So the center's going to go to the right here, and you're going to see here he's going to make a 4 call, and you guys can see where the yellow dot is, right? And 0s at the end of the day ends up being a 3 technique. The DN ends up being 1. The free safety ends up being 2. The will's pushing to number 2 there, and then the left tackle has the double read there. All right.
That wraps up this Mushroom Society episode with Joe Philbin, longtime NFL offensive line coach on 5-man empty protection. Coach Philbin gave a great look at how he thinks about pass protection, from protecting the quarterback's launch point to teaching the set, punch, and mirror as daily fundamentals. If you want more teaching like this, join us at the Cool Clinic, May 14th through 16th. It's built for offensive line coaches who want real detail, real answers, and real football from coaches who know how to teach it. Get your ticket for the Cool Clinic, May 14th through 16th at thecoolclinic.com. The video version of this episode can be found on coachandcoordinator.com. Follow all we're doing on X at The Cool Clinic and at Coach K. Grabowski.